A French soldier regains consciousness on the battlefield. Not far away, German troops who have invaded France are busy clearing the area. The soldier knows he must retreat to the rear positions before the enemy discovers him once spotted. He'll have no chance of survival. But just as he's only steps away from his own mine, he accidentally triggers a bouncing mine and is instantly thrown into the air by the blast. Before long, Gabriel wakes from unconsciousness. He sees several people in suits entering the hospital. One woman approaches a wounded soldier's bed and injects some unknown liquid into his body. The soldier immediately begins convulsing violently and falls still within seconds. The woman then walks to Gabriel's bed, rolls up his sleeve, and injects him with the same liquid. Gabriel reacts. Instantly, the black substance spreads through his veins throughout his body, and his eyes turn pitch black in an instant. He then loses consciousness and passes out. Shortly after, he's loaded onto a truck. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself transported to a heavily guarded building, while frontline battles rage on. A bar in the suburban rear maintains its festive atmosphere. Deep inside the bar, in a private room, a clandestine transaction is underway. A German has come seeking to purchase intelligence about the French military's secret laboratory from the proprietor. Not only the building blueprints but also the guard shift schedules. The next day, the Baron locates his most capable agent, Seiler, and orders him to obtain the intelligence the Germans urgently need as quickly as possible. After the Baron leaves, Seiler takes out a photograph of a laboratory technician and uses his supernatural ability on it. With just this photograph, he can control the target's consciousness. Everything the subject sees and hears becomes as if Seiler were there himself. When the controlled technician walks past the wall, Seiler instantly captures the laboratory's blueprints and immediately sketches them onto paper. He then manipulates the man into entering an office, effortlessly locating the guard shift schedule. Just like that, he obtains the intelligence the Germans need. Meanwhile, the laboratory director, Miro, comes to the ward to explain to Gabriel why he was brought here. The military is researching a serum that can not only completely heal all injuries and illnesses, but also make the body far stronger than before. Gabriel will transform into a super soldier and join the Sentinel Special Forces unit to continue fighting the enemy. However, if the body cannot tolerate the serum, he will directly face life-threatening risks. So Miro gives Gabriel the choice of whether to participate in the experiment. Ultimately, Gabriel agrees to undergo the experiment. Researchers strap him to the bed, and once everything is ready, staff activate the switch and begin injecting the serum into his body. As the dosage gradually increases to maximum levels, his body begins convulsing uncontrollably. Seeing this, Professor Rick standing nearby picks up a gun, ready to end Gabriel's life at any moment. But before he can fire, gunshots suddenly ring out in the corridor. A German squad has broken into the laboratory during the guard shift chain. Upon receiving the news, Miro immediately orders all researchers to evacuate urgent, leaving only researcher Malt alone in the room, prepared to destroy experimental materials and related data at any moment. Moments later, a German soldier enters the room. Malt panics and quickly hides under the desk. The German soldier sees Gabriel on the bed, immediately raises his rifle, and plunges the bayonet into his body. Seeing no reaction, he prepares to move closer to investigate, but Gabriel suddenly opens his eyes, reaches out, and grabs the soldier's throat. The soldier dies of asphyxiation instantly. Several more soldiers then enter through the door. When they see their comrade dead on the ground, they immediately become more vigilant, but don't notice that Gabriel has appeared behind them. By the time they realize it, it's already too late. With the serum's assistant, Gabriel has become extremely ferocious in no time. He eliminates the entire squad of soldiers. Shortly after, support personnel finally arrive at the scene, but the German squad has long since escaped. Director Rick has been reduced to a charred corpse. When Miro hears the news of Gabriel's resurrection from death, he finds it hard to believe. Meanwhile, Gabriel, whose physical condition has not yet stabilized, sees an extremely bizarre vision in his mind. The fact that the German squad bypassed multiple defensive lines to raid the secret base indicates the enemy had obtained critical intelligence beforehand. So the most urgent priority now is to root out the mole inside the laboratory. The military has now confirmed that the leader of the attackers is none other than Gruber, a top German spy. In the laboratory, Gabriel's injuries have completely healed. Miro is preparing to send him to the Sentinel secret camp. But before departing, Gabriel requests to see his family one last time. Unexpectedly, Miro directly refuses this request, because at the official level, this is a classified project to ensure no secrets are leaked. Participants must completely sever all contact with the outside world. When Gabriel agreed to undergo the research experiment, Miro had already arranged for his death notice to be delivered to his wife. Only when the war ended could he reunite with his family. Reluctantly, Gabriel had no choice but to abandon his request and board the truck heading to the secret camp. Just as the truck departed, Inspector Bonner, responsible for investigating the mole, arrived at the laboratory under orders from high command. Meanwhile, German spy Gruber led his men to find the Baron, a bar owner, to assist Gruber's evacuation from France. The Baron specially prepared an ambulance and documents for passing through checkpoints. As Gruber and his men prepared to evacuate, Gabriel had already arrived at the Sentinel's secret camp. There he met three other super soldiers, Claremont, Armand, and Captain Djibouti, who was also the first to undergo the transformation into a super soldier. However, the captain was full of resistance toward this new teammate. Though Gabriel had achieved numerous military accomplishments, he was notorious for his insubordination. The two clashed immediately immediately upon meeting. Seeing this, Armand quickly pulled Gabriel away. Before long, the camp commander received an encrypted message from headquarters. The Germans planned to use aircraft transfer Gruber, the ringleader of the laboratory attack. The specific location had been confirmed. Headquarters ordered the Sentinel team to strike immediately and capture Gruber alive. At the laboratory, since the head researcher Rick had been killed by the enemy, his assistant Malter had taken over the subsequent research work. When he analyzed Gabriel's blood, he accidentally discovered an astonishing phenomenon. After the serum injection, Gabriel's blood had not expelled the serum from his body, but instead absorbed it completely, allowing the serum's activity to persist for a much longer time. Malter approached Miro, proposing to postpone Gabriel's mission execution time to observe his physical condition. Miro rejected Malter's proposal on the spot. However, while the two were conversing, the Sentinel team had already arrived near the German airfield. At the same time, Gruber successfully reached the airfield with his men, just as he boarded the airship waiting for takeoff. The Sentinel team had already infiltrated the hangar and launched an attack on the German guards. In the chaos, Gruber rushed out of the hangar, intending to escape using a small glider outside, but before he could climb onto the aircraft, Gabriel grabbed him and threw him to the ground, then delivered a barrage of iron fists to his face. At that moment, the serum's effects gradually manifested. The cells in Gabriel's body began to mutate. This transformation made him increasingly violent and completely out of control. Just as Gabriel was about to continue his attack, Armand suddenly arrived and stopped him. But Gabriel could no longer distinguish friend from foe. The uncontrollable power within him caused him to strike viciously at his comrade as well. Fortunately, Djibouti appeared in time. Under the restraint of his two teammates, Gabriel slowly regained his sense. Luckily, Gruber wasn't dead, so the Sentinel team could be considered to have successfully completed their mission. On the way back to camp, Gabriel's vision was once again filled with bizarre images in the barracks. A cameraman was using a movie camera to record the soldiers' daily life when suddenly, a monster clad in iron armor began massacring soldiers throughout the quarters. The cameraman chose not to flee but quickly turned the camera crank, using the equipment before him to document this horrific scene. That day, researcher Malter came to the secret camp to conduct comprehensive physical examinations on the super soldiers. As the first test subject, Djibouti's body was showing abnormal conditions. Due to prolonged serum injections, his heart function was gradually weakening. He frequently experienced shortness of breath and occasional hand tremors. Despite this, he chose to remain with the Sentinel team. Gabriel, meanwhile, had been seeing or hearing things that didn't exist at all. He suspected the serum's side effects were causing hallucination. Additionally, during the spy capture operation, he had suddenly become violent and difficult to control. These symptoms were likely all related to the serum, but Malter maintained that even the most violent chemical reactions could not change a person's fundamental character. He then took out a file folder from his bag containing materials he had collected about Gabriel's family medical history. Gabriel's father was violent by nature. When Gabriel was 7 years old, his father had beaten his mother to death with his fists. Gabriel was forced to separate from his father after that and had never seen him since. At that moment, the German spy Gruber, whom Gabriel had beaten and crippled, was undergoing interrogation. Colonel Miro knew very well that the German raid on the secret laboratory was not simply to sabotage the serum project. The enemy must also be conducting similar research. However, he didn't yet know the current progress of their research. Therefore, he intended to extract information about their experimental progress from Gruber. Unfortunately, Gruber had already resolved to die. No matter what torture Miro inflicted upon him, he never revealed even the slightest information related to the research. At that moment, Bonner, who was investigating the laboratory mole, entered the interrogation room. Gruber's capture was closely related to this matter. Moreover, as the highest level investigator, even Miro had no authority to obstruct his investigation. Miro had no other option but to leave the room with his men. News of Gruber's capture soon reached the Baron's ears. Should Gruber reveal his intelligence source, the Baron's life would be forfeit. With time running out, he had no choice but to turn to Sailor for help. He handed Gruber's photograph to Sailor, hoping he could use his supernatural abilities to assess Gruber's current situation. Using the photograph, Sailor quickly sensed Gruber's presence and slipped into his consciousness. At that moment, Gruber was being interrogated by Bonner. Just as he was about to break under torture and reveal the name, the Baron immediately ordered Sailor to silence him permanently. Before long, Miro's subordinates brought dire news an outpost squad stationed in the outskirts had gone completely silent. It appeared the Germans were also advancing their super-soldier project in secret. Miro immediately dispatched the Sentinel squad on a reconnaissance mission. Upon arrival, the camp was eerily quiet. After gearing up and disembarking, the team discovered that all the soldiers in the camp lay dead on the ground, their deaths horrific. Inside the barracks, the scene was equally gruesome. During their search, Clement found a camera on the floor, while the others discovered the sole survivor, a cameraman, in a back corner. From his account, they learned that an armored monster had appeared at the site and slaughtered all the station soldiers. This creature not only possessed an impervious body, but also wielded the ability to control others' minds. Just as he finished speaking, Gabriel began showing abnormal symptoms once again. He heard that familiar yet sinister voice. Intelligence confirmed this individual was a German developed super-soldier. The news immediately drew intense attention from the French Ministry of Defense. The minister personally convened an emergency embassy, meeting with military leaders to discuss countermeasures. The French military now faced a precarious situation and risked losing the war. The only way to turn the tide was to eliminate this Super-Soldier 8 ask that naturally fell to the Sentinel squad. Orders received. The team boarded trucks bound for the war zone. Meanwhile, Inspector Bonner entered Miro's office. The German spy previously captured by the Sentinel squad had died during his interrogation, and he needed to provide a reasonable explanation. According to the medical examiner's autopsy report, Dr. Gruber had died from sudden cardiac rupture, a shocking conclusion. Yet Bonner remained unusually composed, though he'd failed to extract the traitor's identity from the spy. His investigation seemed to have uncovered an even greater secret. At that moment, the laboratory was conducting experimental trials. As the switch closed, black serum slowly infused into a soldier's body. Staff members watched the instrument gauges intently. When the serum dosage reached maximum, the subject's heart could no longer bear the strain. Amid violent convulsions, black liquid began pouring from his mouth. Witnessing this, Mark retrieved a prepared pistol from a nearby cart. Suppressing overwhelming psychological pressure, he pulled the trigger. It was the first time in his life he'd actively taken another's life. The experiment had failed. Deeply discouraged, Miro could only place all his hopes on the Sentinel squad. The team had now reached the combat zone. Their destination was an abandoned chemical plant nearby. The squad leader intended to ask the commanding officer at the defensive position for the quickest route to the factory, but the soldiers warned them against going. There was a terrifying monster inside that hunted French soldiers specifically. These words stirred unease among the squad members. Fear was already spreading through the ranks. To restore and dispel the terror, they had to eliminate the creature everyone spoke of. After brief rest, they crossed through the woods and the chemical plant came into view. The team cautiously approached. Upon reaching the factory entrance, they were met with a horrifying sight: comrades' bodies scattered across the ground. The moment they entered the factory, they came under fierce, unexpected attack. Leveraging favorable terrain and overwhelming firepower, the enemy pinned down the Sentinel squad, making it difficult to find a breakthrough. During the intense firefight, Captain G.I. took a stray bullet to the abdomen. Thanks to the serum, he suffered no major injury for now, but if the standoff continued, his stamina would give out. He immediately ordered Gabriel and Clement to provide cover, while he and Armand circled around to the enemy's rear, planning a pincer movement. Under their teammates' covering fire, the two climbed stairs to a hideout. Midway through, G.I. finally collapsed from cardiac overload. To avoid disrupting the battle plan, he ordered Armand to proceed alone and rendezvous with the other two. Gabriel and his companion had also reached the tower. They spotted a soldier slumped against a pillar with a knife in his chest. Gabriel approached to check on him, when suddenly the sound of metal clanging came from behind. Both men immediately spun around, weapons trained, carefully searching for the enemy, but they'd forgotten the adversary could control minds. While they searched for their foe, the wounded soldier had already fallen under control. He slowly walked over, picked up a grenade, and under the enemy's command, pulled the pin.